In this unit, we work with testing a single proportion, and so we're going to take a look at an example problem and see exactly how that works. One formula that will be especially helpful is the one for the standard error of a proportion. In this formula, there's a couple of things that we want to take note, and one is the hypothesized proportion that is here and here. The n on the bottom, that comes from our sample size. Now we can take a look at our example. So the sponsors of a marathon have been trying to encourage more men to participate in their event. They'd really like to have 20% or more men participate. A sample size of 80 runners is taken, and of that sample size, 13 are actually men. So the sponsors think that, you know what, maybe less than 20% of the participants are actually men. Now, using a significance level of 0.1, were their recruitment efforts actually successful or not? Some questions that we want to answer about this problem are: what exactly is the null hypothesis? What is the standard error of the proportion? What is our p-value? And finally, and most importantly, what conclusions can we make? So let's first try and answer what the null hypothesis should be. In this problem, we think that participation from men is probably less than 20%. Now, this doesn't contain an equal sign, so we will make it our alternate hypothesis. For the null, we'll use the opposite, that it's actually greater than or equal to 20%. Now let's calculate the standard error. In order to find the standard error for the proportion, we need to use this formula here. Remember that when you're putting in your values, that you want to put in the hypothesized proportion. That's the 20%. For n, we use our sample size of 80. After simplifying this down, I get a value like 0.0447. Next, we are going to find the p-value. And there are several ways that you can do this. One way is to actually calculate the z-score, so you can look it up in a table. You may also use your calculator or an online calculator. For convenience, I'm going to use the online calculator. Now, in order to use this, I need to know the sample proportion. So I look at how many of my sample were actually men, so that I can come up with that number. In this case, the 13 out of 80. Now, I'm going to be looking for an area that is less than this value. Plugging everything into my online calculator, I can see that the area under the curve gives me my p-value. This value is 0.200755. And I'd probably round this to something like just 0.2. We are finally ready to draw some conclusions about this problem. In order to do so, we want to compare our p-value with our significance level. In this problem, notice how our p-value is actually greater than the significance level. Now, what this means is that we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Now, recall that in our null hypothesis, we have that the proportion is greater than or equal to 20%. So we can say that there is insufficient evidence to actually support the claim that less than 20% of runners were men. Now, in the entire context of the problem, what that means is that the recruitment efforts were actually successful.